Welcome back. It is another episode of What's on Your Plate. I am your host, Sarah. Every time I have Angie Arreola on, it's like talking to an old friend rather than a therapist. She's so relatable and she's so real. And she has such an amazing gift to help both kids and parents navigate life together. In our third episode now, we're hitting on some taboos, the things that are hard to admit as parents, and what are often seen as dirty little secrets that can feel shameful, if not at least embarrassing. Listen in to hear a few of my own. Angie once again helps us sort out all the many pieces and parts of parenting our kids, as well as ourselves. Here we go. Let's dig in. Guys, I'm super excited to have Angie Arreola back with us today. This is our episode 3.0 of What's on Your Plates. And today we get to talk about something really fun, a little bit taboo in regards to most of us as parents don't talk about things like this for fear of judgments. So I'm excited to maybe admit some things today, maybe hear what Angie admits. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's always so much fun to be with you. I particularly enjoy that it's a podcast, and so I can still be in my sweats.
Yeah.
Sounding professional.
I could not agree more with that. I mean, I came in here today really just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, setting up like at the very last second, and didn't have to worry about hair, clothes. Not that I worry about that too much anyways, but yeah, it didn't matter that I wasn't really put together for our little discussion. So that's the beauty of podcasting, I guess. Yeah. We can just show up as we are and just be who we are. And that's fantastic.
And I think I will cop to, it's so probably because I'm not in my professional therapist gear, right? Like I'm dressed in sweats, which is not something I wear when I normally work with clients and families. And so A, that makes me probably a little more relaxed. And B, talking to you just feels like talking to a friend. So I think you get the most candid version of therapist me that anyone probably gets.
Well, that's awesome. I love talking to you too.
Yeah, outside of my person.
Yeah. To back up for a second, if you are listening for the first time or maybe haven't listened to Angie and I's past episodes, Angie is a youth counselor in Northwest Indiana. She is the owner of Benchmark Counseling and is on a mission to help us understand and embrace our youth so that we can raise amazing humans that will hopefully one day do amazing things for us as adults and make good choices for everyone. So again, Angie, I'm just always so in awe of the work that you do. And it really just takes a special kind to step into that role of really like embracing and understanding and trying to guide our kids in a mental health way. Gosh, it's one thing to like go through the motions every day of your own children, and you do that too on top of like helping everybody figure out everybody else figure out their kids. It's just such amazing work, and I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, it truly is my passion. It really, really is.
That's so cool. So when we say something like the phrase dirty little secrets of parenting, what kind of comes to mind initially when somebody says that to you?
Yeah, the very first thing I think of is, all of those things that we don't want to admit to because really for fear of being judged by other people, even though it's something that most parents struggle with or have experienced at one point or another, probably lots of times. But yeah, those things that we don't really want to cop to because, it's going to make me look bad.
Yeah. One of the first things that comes to mind for me, and it's maybe a little bit heavier, like right off the bat, I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. I had like an awful birthing experience. So in my mind, and I've said it out loud to people, even though there feels a sense of shame around it, giving birth to my son was like the worst experience of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is not a popular thing to say.
No, it is not. But I mean, it happens so frequently that there are actually mental health therapists who specialize in prenatal and perinatal mental health for moms. And there's also a small subset that specialize in, the mental health of new dads. But I mean, it happens unfortunately so frequently to so many moms that, yeah, or so many, people who give birth, that it's its own specialty. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
There was really so much guilt associated with that too. It took me a long time to get past that because, I feel like I should have, that should have been like the best day of my life. Right. And in
yeah.
terms of like meeting my son, it was, but the process of getting him out of my body was like, that's what I mean by like the worst experience of my life. It was just brutal. And I won't go into the gory details here, folks, but, it kind of, it hindered my ability to feel the, you know, rainbows and butterflies and
Yeah.
fuzzies and all those things. Like initially, when they set him on my chest after he did come out of my body, and
Mhm.
that was like there was a sense of relief, but also just like, oh my God, that was horrible, like kind of feeling. And I've always worried, did he feel that energy from me? I've always worried
Yeah.
throughout the years of, oh my gosh, did I give him that vibe? And the fact that it took me a long time to get through it.
Well,
I worry about that too.
I feel like that's a dirty little secret too. We've all done that at some
Yeah.
point or another. We have all, and I lump myself here too, given our kids the vibe of, ugh, not now, or,
Mm.
you know, and that's precisely what a dirty little secret is, right? It's those things that we we struggle to cop to, but we also have to recognize that we are human. We are human. And there's always a way to repair that. I'm sure, I can empathize a little bit with your situation in that, with my first, yeah, they put him on me and I was like, ugh, now what? Right.
Yeah.
And that was, he actually had some complications when he was born. And so, like, I didn't even get to hold him until he was about 6 hours old, right? So I totally am like, oh gosh, like, and we were separated. He was in the NICU and I was in recovery, and gosh, how scary that must have been for him. And there's all of these things that float around, but realistically, what control did we have about that? Or, with that sort of stuff. It was an attempt to keep us, both alive and doing well. And I mean, I was okay, but keep him well and monitored. And so, as much as we always want to be that safe space, and that, we always want to be on for our kids, I think that's just, it's an unrealistic expectation that really just, it sets us up to fail. If the expectation is that we're going to always be on, then when we fall, gosh, we fall just so much further, so much harder. And so if we learn to, okay, I'm going to always try my best, knowing that my best is going to look different on different days. And when I fall, not if, when I fall, how do I repair that? How do I fix it? Right.
Yeah.
So
Gosh, that's so good. Like my best on that day too, is what I really heard you say there. And also us trying to be on all the time and never allow ourselves that off switch teaches our kids that they always have to be that way too. That
yes,
they can't have any, yeah.
so it's the expectation for perfection, and there's no such thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but many parents that I've been in connection with over the years find it difficult to show emotion or to cry in front of their children, as if it's some type of weakness in their
Yeah.
character, or it makes them feel like they have to create an illusion that everything's okay, even when it's not okay, kind of thing. And I'm a hard no on that, because I just feel like that too is kind of, the secret that mom cries,
Yes.
right, is not one to be kept, because I just feel like that's telling kids that if you're feeling something, then you should probably go hide in a corner and feel it, and not give that gift of yourself to the world, which it is a gift, I feel like, too.
Be able to fully experience your emotions.
Yes, and teaching your kids to be able to do the same. So,
and that truly is the hallmark of a healthy family. Healthy families are allowed to experience emotions that cover the spectrum, not just the pleasant emotions. And if your child, as parents, we always try to offer comfort and reassurance when our child experiences an unpleasant emotion. And our kids need to be able to learn how to offer that for other people. And the very first place they're going to learn that is at home. And it's okay. Your child obviously shouldn't be taking care of your emotional needs, but it's okay if they see you, upset. It's okay, as long as it's accompanied with a short explanation. I'm feeling sad today. If it's something that, is beyond them to be able to grasp, or, I'm feeling sad because I'm, missing the pet goldfish that died yesterday. Like, you can model that. And it goes such a long way for our kids.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And it feels right to not, I guess, filter myself for him.
Yeah. There's actually a really good children's book called, I believe the title is It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And it talks exactly about that. It's a story of a little girl and her mom, and about the mom experiencing, I like, more unpleasant emotions, and that it's okay. It's okay. And the overarching theme that we always want to teach kids is that feelings are temporary. They don't last forever. There's not an emotion in the world that lasts forever. And if you think about it, right, when you do get an emotion that lasts longer than it needs to be lasting, that's mental health. That's a mental health concern. Sadness lasting longer than it's supposed to, depression. Worries lasting longer than they're supposed to, anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you seek out the support of a trained professional. But yeah, feelings don't last forever. And it's okay. They can come and they can go. And there are certain things that we can do to pull for certain emotions, right? If we want to feel happy, we do things that make us feel happy. If we want to feel excited, we plan something exciting.
Yeah. And what you just said there about getting the help that you need, that's another thing that comes to mind, I feel like, is parents not either they're delaying getting help for their children when they sense it's needed, or if they are getting it for them, they tend to not share that with other people, as if it is shameful or even like a reflection on their parenting.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yeah, there are so many parents who, by the time they call for services, they've been feeling so overwhelmed for so long. And so truly my wish for parents is that they seek help sooner, because it leads to less overwhelm, and it leads to feeling better sooner. And I know sometimes it's hard to tell if your child needs support, but there's not a therapist in the world who's going to turn you away from a consultation. Hey, this is what I'm seeing in my kid. Do you think this is something that you'd be able to help with? But to speak to your point about, I think that, yeah, I think for many families, it's a dirty little secret. And I will say, when I first started doing this work 15 years ago, hopefully your listeners aren't doing the math. But when I started this work 15 years ago, it was a dirty little secret for both the kiddos that I was working with, as well as the parents. But I will tell you, I now get referrals from people who a parent will call and say, well, my child has asked for therapy. My child has asked for counseling.
I love to hear that.
Not only that, but my child's friend is a patient of yours, is a client of yours, sees someone at your practice. And, my friend, my child now wants to also receive services. So I will say it's becoming less and less taboo. And I am thrilled by that. I am absolutely thrilled. But I think that that's another dirty little secret that parents don't want to cop to. But my goodness, imagine the relief of some parents. And, I think sometimes there's this, you always want to balance keeping your child's private life private, right? You want to give them that support that they want, or that privacy, I guess, that they're looking for. But also, my goodness, think of, being able to offer someone who's struggling, oh, you know what? My kid was doing that same thing, and we've been working with this mental health counselor, and we've seen an improvement.
Yeah.
Being that light for another parent who just is really also struggling.
The other thing that I think about when you're talking about parents getting their kids help is that not only do they see it as some kind of reflection on themselves, but also I think a lot of parents come into the parenting situation almost sometimes feeling like they should just know how to do it. And I could not like disagree with that more. Like it kind of goes back to like the beginnings with my son, and a couple days after having him, just going home, and it's just like the hospital staff is like, good luck, peace, Godspeed. And it's like, seriously. And I was the type of person that, like, that's the only thing they make sure of, is that you have a car seat.
Yeah, because they let you out the door.
Yeah. I mean, and I was the kind of person that I read throughout my pregnancy. I researched, I did the classes, I did all the things to try to prepare myself. But at the end of the day, I was astonished that you are allowed to take this brand new human home, and nobody's even like following up if you actually do go to the wellness visits, if you actually do show up and have somebody like just make sure your baby's doing well. And I know that there's some conflicting feelings about that, but I feel like at the end of the day, it is scary, especially for brand new moms, brand new parents, right? To have this brand new human in their existence. And then it just like, you're just expected to know what to do. You're just expected to like know what they need. And even as they grow older and, they're dealing with school and peers and all the things, you're just expected to know how to handle the situations. And it's just not true. Like, you are not given a toolbox or a how-to book on how to parent. So you're not supposed to go it alone. Back to that, it takes a village, and people like yourself being such a critical part of that village.
Yes. So I have so much to say. So, right? Like, parents thinking that the need for a therapist is a reflection of their parenting. Ooh, ouch, hard stop. Because do we shame ourselves when our kid gets the flu and we've got to take them to the pediatrician for an antibiotic? Do we shame ourselves when our kid has swimmer's ear? Oh my gosh, I'm such an awful parent. I let my kids swim. Oh, please come, take them to a safer family now. Oh gosh, no, we don't torture ourselves in that way, because physical health has been prioritized in our society for eons. And I think mental health, it's days, I think its heyday is still coming, but we're getting there. We as a society are starting to recognize, holy cats, like that mental health stuff really matters. And gosh, our quality of life is so much better when our mental health is addressed and taken care of. And so if you need a counselor in your life, you probably did nothing wrong. I sometimes think that sometimes people, I think sometimes people kind of make that assumption that, oh gosh, what did I do? Because therapists also are phenomenal, and we're very much needed when people experience traumatic events, right? And so when something bad happens to somebody, who swoops in to care for that? The counselors, the therapists, the social workers. And we also swoop in when children aren't being taken care of. And so I think sometimes it's easy to say, oh gosh, what did I as the parent do wrong here? But again, I have to emphasize, hard stop. I mean, likely we didn't do anything. I will say though, parents are just like, you don't cause your child to have a fever, but you've got that cure in a bottle of Tylenol. Same thing goes with mental health. We probably aren't causing our children's worries and anxiety, but we are an important component toward their recovery. And there are things that we can do as parents to help. And not just anxiety, other mental health concerns too, and just struggles in general. And then, yes, like that need for a village, right? Like almost like, we think we're going to know what to do when the time comes. And even if you are one of those individuals that researches everything and reads all the books, I think back to after I had my first, and I think back to, he had some challenges when he was an infant. And I think back to, doing my research on those things and feeling like I'd go down the rabbit hole and I'd spend, 2 hours researching what to do for this specific thing. And there would be so much conflicting advice, right? Put them on their tummy, don't put them on their tummy. Like, burp them, don't burp them, hold them at an angle, don't hold them at an angle. Like, swaddle, don't swaddle. And I'd get off the internet and my head would be swimming, and I almost as if I'm worse off than if I had than before I started. And so it's so hard to know the right thing. And I think, of course, part of that is the right thing varies person to person, family to family, and there's no one size fits all, which is why I think that's another reason why counselors and therapists are so helpful, is because we take these therapeutic models and these, what the research and science says, and we help families apply that, right? There are so many, parenting courses and parenting hacks and things online, and you should do gentle parenting and you should do this and that. And as clinicians, we take those guiding principles and help families apply that to their specific situation. Because sometimes you can read a parenting book and you're like, yeah, all this makes sense. This is what I'm going to do. And then the first meltdown comes and you're like, oh, crap. What did the book say to do?
Yeah. And a lot of that can be informational overload. Sometimes you do need to, just dial into your intuition and really go towards what feels warm and right instead of what everybody else is telling you too about your parenting style.
Yes.
That can really interfere with the way things go in yours and your child's life as well. But I also find the value in what you do in regards to, you are somebody that perhaps isn't emotionally connected to the situation or to the family in the way, and I'm sure you do. I'm sure that's hard to separate in your line of work, but at the end of the day, you are able to see things from a much different perspective than perhaps the parents are.
Yes. And I will say that's one of several things that sets a counselor apart from your best friend. The information that we're giving you isn't really advice. The information we're giving you is a clinical opinion. It's based on your specific family, the dynamics that are happening inside your home. It's based on your child's needs. It's based on what you need as a parent and the support that you're looking for as a parent. And so it's very, very different. I know sometimes we get a bad rap of, why would you pay a counselor when you can, ask your mom or your grandma and, your village, and not to discount the feedback from those individuals, because, our village is incredibly important, but sometimes our villagers don't have the latest and greatest research. Many people don't recognize it, but a mental health therapist, we do 4 years of undergraduate, and then we do a 2-year graduate degree. And while we're in our graduate program, we work for free for 1 year, earning clinical hours. And then once we're done, we are provisionally licensed. And then we're required to work. So that provisionally licensed means we can't even work independently on our own. We have to work under the supervision of someone else. And for 2 years working full time before we can then go out on our own. So we're highly trained, highly skilled professionals. That's
highly dedicated, I might add.
Right. Years of school and thousands, I truly, I mean, thousands of clinical hours training under someone else. So, so it's definitely something. We're not dispensing advice. These are clinical opinions on what your child needs to be successful.
Yeah.
Or you, if we're working with you.
Absolutely. Another thing that comes to mind regarding just sort of secrets that maybe you don't share out openly on a regular basis. And I think it might pertain more to my situation or others similar to it, in that my son is an only child, right? So you're the playmate much of the time, especially like in these, at least in Northwest Indiana, these dreary cold months where there's not often as much opportunity to get outside and play with friends. And it's like, I don't know about other parents listening, but it sounds awful to say, like, I almost never actually want to play with my kid. And that just sounds so wrong to say, like, what kind of monster are you? You don't want to play with your kid. But I mean, it's a little bit better now that he's older and like he wants to play soccer and stuff, like more active things that I would probably be more inclined to do. But, especially in the infancy, toddler phase of getting down like on the floor and playing. And I know parents, I have close friends that just want to do nothing but do that with their kids all day. And I was just never that parent.
Yes. There are some parents who would rather gouge their eyeballs out than spend another 20 minutes playing or reenacting the latest Peppa Pig episode that they're talking about.
I know.
Yeah. At least we've got things like Bluey now that are a little more entertaining, but I totally empathize. And I think one of the things that I want to reassure parents of is that, yes, playing with your child it's imperative. You have to do it.
Even though you hate it, you have to do it,
right? Even though you hate it. But a little goes a long, long way. In fact, one of the therapies we specialize at Benchmark, one of the therapies we specialize in at Benchmark Counseling is parent-child interaction therapy. And it's specifically designed for parents of toddlers and preschool, young kids, ages like 2 to 6 is, there are some adaptations for older kids that we use too, but it's all centered around helping the parent get the behavior that they're wanting from their kid. So, how to engage them in a way that feels nurturing for both. But a big component of this type of therapy is playing with the child. Can I tell you, guess how many minutes, Sarah? Guess how many minutes of special playtime we tell parents to do every night?
30 minutes.
5.
Wow.
5 minutes, because that's all it takes. So yes, 5 minutes of high quality play.
So like not on your phone at the same time, not doing other things, like giving them your full presence.
Giving them your full presence. And we teach parents what we call the pride skill. So in those 5 minutes, you're going to want to use as many of the pride skills as you possibly can. And the P stands for praise. So shower your kiddo with praise. I like the way you did that. Your picture you drew is phenomenal. You're the best artist I've ever seen. Praise. And then the R is reflect. So you're going to reflect what they're telling you. Look, mommy, I drew a sun. You drew a sun, right? It's showing them that you're paying attention. You heard what they said. It also really works wonders for kiddos who have like speech delays, because sometimes they'll say, I drawed a sun. So when you reflect, you'll say, you drew a sun, right? So you'll reflect, but in the correct tense. And then the I is imitate. You're going to follow their lead. You're just going to imitate and do whatever they want to play with, you're going to play with. The D stands for describe. And you're just going to describe what they're doing with their hands. Oh, you're putting the red block on top of the blue block. Oh, now we're switching to crayons. You're switching to crayons. You're coloring the sun yellow. You're coloring the bird blue. I describe the way that I kind of teach what the describe skill looks like is, think of a sportscaster. As they're narrating, oh, he's passing the ball to this person, and I'm not a sports person, but people get that analogy. It really resonates with people, right? When you think of a sportscaster, they narrate exactly what's happening, what the players are doing. So you are your child's sportscaster, and again, it shows your child that you are interested in what they're doing, that you're excited about what they're doing, and that you approve of what they're doing. And then the E stands for enthusiasm. So fake it till you make it, baby. Pretend like you are having so much fun with your child. So those are the things that you want to do during that week. So we call it special playtime. And then there are some don't skills, right? The skills that you want to avoid. And those include things like don't criticize your child, don't make comparisons, don't ask them questions, because if you're asking questions, it's leading the play, and it doesn't allow for you to then imitate them. And then we always encourage that special playtime be done with toys that don't really require limit setting. So for example, if you pull out paint, right, and you're trying to do special playtime with paint, ooh, that could potentially go south really quickly, because you can no longer really imitate all of their behavior, especially if they start doing something that's inappropriate, like painting on the walls. Unless you, like, I don't know a parent alive who's just like, cool, we're painting on the walls now, let's do it. So you always want to use a toy that doesn't really require limit setting. Things like paper and crayons, building toys are like Legos, Magnetiles, those sorts of things are always great ones to have. Little toy cars, stuff like that. So
Makes so much sense.
yeah. And so if it's 5 minutes of high quality, intensive play, that's all you need for your child to feel connected to you, and to help start building that solid base, that solid foundation. Yeah.
Would you say that later on, as they get older, that translates into that type of, the dedicated play? Does that translate then later into you giving them like your undivided attention with like having conversations at a certain point? Is that kind of grooming to lead up to something like that, where you can, spend those, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes a day, like really digging into the details of their day, and hopefully them sharing things with you that they might not have otherwise?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it lays the foundation for all the elements to be present for your child to feel connected enough to you, to then be able to share what they have, sort of what's on their mind. It might take some prompting by you. Hey, tell me about your day, those sorts of things. As they get older, right, as they enter in those tween and teen years, they begin to tell you a little bit less. However, if you're responding in ways that encourages them to keep talking, they are going to keep talking to you. And I think, playing this way, it lays the foundation for, I want to hear what you have to say. I have no agenda. I'm here for you. Because during those 5 minutes, you truly have no agenda. You're not asking questions. You're not telling them what to do. You're just following their lead.
Yeah.
And they feel so valued that you tend to start seeing improvements in behavior. So that's the first phase of treatment. And the second phase of treatment really is teaching parents how to give their child commands in ways that optimizes the odds they're going to listen to what you're telling them to do, and then how to respond to them. How a parent should respond to their child if they're being defiant and not listening. And so oftentimes we see so much growth in that first phase of treatment that parents are like, wow, this is, they're really wowed by the improvement in that connection. And so, if you think about it, who are you likely to go to when you have a bad day? The people you feel most connected to. And so really, it's all about connecting with your kids, letting them know that they are, yes, I believe the sun shines out of your butt, right? I believe you poop rainbows. Right? Like, this kind of circles back to, in the beginning, you might not think that, you might not feel that way. My experience between having my first child and my second was very different. My first one, I was like, oh, okay, now what? Right. And my second, as the instant I laid eyes on him, I was like, yeah, pretty sure you poop rainbows. So, yeah. So it's very different, but if your child feels connected to you, they're going to come to you. And keeping that non-judgmental stance, giving them that positive feedback that they're looking for, prioritizing them for 5 solid minutes every day in the way that feels good for them, not in the way that feels good for us as parents, but in a way that feels good for them. And so, yeah, as they get older, it might mean picking up the video game remote control and saying, teach me how to play Minecraft.
Yeah.
I'm gonna spend 15 minutes with you. Like, show me how to play this game.
What I hear a lot of what you're saying, to me, it translates into, I mean, you're actually doing less of, you're not like grooming your child so much as you are really training yourself on how to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. If we can meet them where they're at, then they're willing to allow us to be their tour guide.
Right. And I would think just things like that early ingraining of not only in the child's perception, but also in your own mind training, that I'm not going to compare them, I'm not going to criticize them. That I feel like is just critical for those preteen and teen years, to just have that already going in your mental makeup.
Yes, yes. Well, and I feel like that's yet another dirty little secret, right? The fact that we're just tour guides. We're their tour guide on life. We don't get to tell them what to do or how to behave. Or, as much as parents like to think that we are in charge of it all, we are not. We're not. I mean, we can guide, we can shape, we can suggest, but it really all boils down to that other human.
Yeah, I read something recently that, it doesn't really matter how much you throw at your kid in regards to influencing them with something. If that's not who they are made up to be on the inside, like let's use, I don't know, soccer as an example. Like from early on, you've put your kid in all the soccer teams and all the soccer workshops and soccer, probably because that's what you as the parent like to do. And then, you're just kind of forcing your kid to go along with it, even if they're not feeling it. You're using it as a way to say, you gotta, show up for the team. It's a team sport. You gotta follow through with your commitments and all the things. And then really they want to play tennis, so ultimately they will switch at some point because they're not made to be soccer players. They're made to be tennis players or dancers or whatever it is. So you can't like force your agenda on your child in any way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the kiddos who make that most obvious for us are the ones who are like, they're more the tinkerer, right? I think of my kids. I have one who really enjoys being active and one who, like, I promise you, some days his life's mission is to be a couch potato. And so finding things that feed his soul, that don't necessarily require him to be super active, because it's not something he excels at. And nobody wants to be in something that they don't feel good about. In fact, forcing our kids to engage in some of these activities that don't feed their soul really is just, it's soul sucking.
Yeah.
And it makes them miserable.
For sure. So like identifying what their passions are or what they gravitate towards, and like helping them find their tribes of supports.
Exactly. And if you can help them find the things that they enjoy, and then other people who also enjoy that same thing, well, now they've got connection outside of the home. And I know we've talked about that before in one of our previous podcasts. I can't remember if that was part 1 or part 2, but we talked about how it is important to nurture our child's relationships outside of the home. Just as it's important to nurture our relationships inside the home with them. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I continue to think about that. So for sure, listeners, go back to Angie and I's previous episodes. There's just a wealth of knowledge and insight that she has shared with us. And one of them is, of course, the importantness of connections with responsible adults outside of their parents. so, so critical to their just success in life. What about the dirty little secret of parents who know their kid, and this isn't going to be popular either, but parents
Later on,
that
yeah.
parents that like are aware that their kid is an asshole.
Ooh, yes.
What do you do with that? What do you do with that?
What do you do when you're the parent of an a-hole, or what do you do when you are there's a parent in your circle whose kid is an a-hole?
Oh, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, right. We could do another entire podcast on that one, probably. Yeah. So I think there's a couple of ways that to look at this, right? So what are you interested in hearing from me?
So I struggle with the thought that my kid could either be the asshole at some point.
Oh, he will.
For sure. And like I've seen it in
Yes.
I've seen it in little ways already. Like I don't like the way maybe he'll exclude somebody.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, he's only 8, so I know that he probably isn't registering it like I am at this point, but also I'm afraid of somebody being an asshole to him too in that same way. So I guess it goes both ways. But I guess let's start with like, what if my kid is being the a-hole?
Yeah. So if your kid's being the a-hole, you got to call them on it, right? But you've got to call them on it in a way that feels helpful as opposed to shaming. And so this is going to look a little different. Some kids are very sensitive to correction. And so any sort of correction feels like this personal attack on their little souls. And for other kids, they can take correction and just keep on rolling. It's no big deal. And so, obviously you're going to want to take your child's individual personality into account. But when you're taking that into account, the message that you're going to want to communicate is, hey, can we talk about something? I noticed today, and then recount what was happening. I noticed today that you all were playing together and you made a rule where, there was 4 kids and you made a rule where all 3 got to do this thing, but that 4th person, was not allowed to do that thing, right? And kids around 8 years old, they know that it's they have a pretty good idea that it's frowned upon to exclude people, but they also know that you're supposed to follow the rules. So if there's a rule that says 3 out of the 4 of us can adventure together, then, hey, we're just following the rules, right? And so it's pointing out, hey, I noticed today this thing happened. Tell me about that. And then your child's going to open up and they're going to talk about that. They're going to tell you from their perspective what was going on, right? And then you can come in and you can say, well, I'm wondering how X was feeling about that game. I'm wondering how X might be feeling about being the only one not allowed to do the thing. I'm wondering if he felt excluded or left out, right? Yeah. And then your kiddo's going to connect the dots. They're going to say, oh yeah, maybe. And then this is where then as a tour guide, you get to say, next time, let's think of a rule that includes everybody. Or next time, and if your child has difficulty empathizing with the other kiddo, if you say, well, I wonder how, X was feeling about that game. And they're like, yeah, they were cool with it. They were fine. Then you can shift with a follow-up question of, well, what do you think it would be like if you got to be that person, if you got to be the role of X? And then all of a sudden the shoe's on the other foot and they're a little more like, oh, yeah, I don't know that I'd be as cool with it as so-and-so was. So, and it's a way of bringing it up that's not judgmental. Because as soon as our child, thinks or perceives that we're passing judgment, they're going to start to shut down and get defensive. Well, it's the rule of the game. And that's how we, and I will admit, I don't always approach it this way with my own kids, because as a parent, sometimes you're just out of bandwidth and you can't approach it the right way all the time. And so
Mhm.
sometimes it comes out of my mouth as, hey, stop excluding your brother. Or, hey, I don't like that rule, make a new one.
Oh my
But again,
gosh.
but you can always, you can repair that, that's the important piece, is recognizing, we're not perfectionists, we're going to drop the ball. So don't set your expectations, super high and unrealistic. But B, when you drop the ball, when you mess up, walk it back a bit, right? So
Yeah.
that night, talk to them. Hey, earlier I hollered at you to not exclude anybody. To me, the game that you were playing looked like you were excluding so-and-so. Talk to me a little bit more. Maybe I misunderstood the game. Tell me what the game was about. And at this point, your kiddo's going to probably, if they were excluding, they're probably going to be like, oh, well, yeah, we
Mhm.
were doing it. Right? Or if you seriously misunderstood, they're going to correct you right then and there. And they're going to feel, wow, she walked that.
Validated.
Yeah, validated, like validated. And not only that, but really like, oh, mom recognizes that she jumped the gun there. Mom recognizes that, she blamed me for something I wasn't even doing.
Yeah.
Because
Which is
sometimes,
also why it's so important to be able to apologize to your child.
yes, always. And it shouldn't sound like, well, I did X because you, right? It should
Mhm.
never, it should really not include the word you. I'm sorry I reacted the way that I did. I was feeling frustrated, annoyed, angry. If you're tempted to say angry, dig a little deeper. I think we've talked about that one before
Yes.
too. But yeah, if your apology should be about your behavior.
Right.
And a commitment to trying, I'm going to try again.
What about encountering a parent who won't acknowledge their child's behavior? And by that, I mean parents who may say, their child is called out on something that isn't kind or is even downright mean. And their immediate is that, no, my child would never do anything like that. That's not possible, type of thing. And it's just like this whole denial of being willing to even see their child in the light of anything other than good and
Rainbows.
wholesome. And there's so many like reasons that that's not true.
Yes. My heart truly goes out for those kiddos. Because again, dirty little secret of parenting, everyone's child falls short because everyone's child is human
Right.
and they are learning to navigate the world. If every time our child missteps, we simply bury our head in the sand, that child will never improve. That child will never grow. That child will never learn how to become, the human they're destined to be, right? And so those are really, really difficult parents um to approach. And I have found that oftentimes it comes from the parents feeling shameful, right? The parents not wanting to admit that one of the dirty little secrets is that our kids fall short and they're feeling judged. They're feeling, that they're not good enough in some sort of way, or that they've failed as a parent because their kid did something, that made another parent clutch their pearls. And so I always encourage, and this goes for not only those parents who are defensive, but just parents in general. I always, anytime I have to approach another parent about their child's behavior, just in my personal life, is, I use some of my clinical skills of, helping to put them at ease of, hey, this is really hard for me to bring to your attention, but I've given it some thought, and this is true. I always think about it, right? Is this something I would want another parent to bring to my attention? And if it's something that I'm like, no big deal, like, yeah, they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing, but the parent, the other parent corrected it and it's already handled. But if it was something that the parent was, that wasn't corrected, or the other parent, I feel like, yeah, as a parent, I would want to know this. then that's exactly what I say. Hey, this is a little hard for me to bring up to you, right? Like put it out there that this is a hard conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
But I've given it some thought, and if one of my kiddos did this, I would want someone to talk to me about it. I would want to be made aware.
Mm-hmm.
And so my hope is that you view it as me, trying to be helpful rather than critical. Every kid has those moments where they don't exactly shine. And so, one of the things, XYZ happened, when your child was at my home or on the playground. And, I was hoping you would talk to your child about it.
Yeah.
And
One
yeah.
of the things that I know I have taken personally, and I know I shouldn't, but it brings to mind, when we talked a little bit before about the exclusion of people, and I'm super sensitive to that if my son is excluding a girl,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, I just feel this urgency in my parenting to make sure that he understands that everybody gets to play, boys and girls. And that, to me, when that scenario has happened in the past, he might ditch the girl to go play with the boy. I so feel just threatened as a human, as a parent in that scenario. And
Yeah.
I do want another parent to make me aware of that, just for the sake of having that sort of ethical conversation with my son about that type of thing. And maybe on his radar, the boy girl thing has nothing to do with it. I think it's more the activity that they're all choosing to do. He's more interested in sports versus, I don't know, maybe playing with chalk or something.
Yes.
So he just switches his playmate. But in my mind, I'm like, you are not going to ditch that little girl to go play with that little boy.
Yes. And I think that's where getting curious, right? Gosh, as parents, if we could just be more curious, right? So I noticed that you stopped playing chalk to go play soccer. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Did soccer look like more fun? And they'll tell you, they'll, and sometimes they'll be like, they won't even notice. They'll be like, oh, yeah. Or, sometimes they'll say, well, so-and-so was playing soccer and so is my best friend. And that's okay. That's okay. Everyone's got their favorites, right?
But then I'm always like, how do you think the girl felt that you just decided to leave her to go play with the boy? And I'm just always hyper concerned of how he might, it's a fine line, because I don't want to groom him to be, I don't want to shame him, and I don't want to groom him to be of a codependent mindset, and that everybody else has to be okay for him to be okay, kind of thing. But I also want him to be aware of how he may make people feel.
Yeah.
At least have an awareness of it.
Yeah. Okay. So something that I always kind of drill home with parents is stop telling your child what you don't want them to do. Tell them what you want them to do, right? So rather than telling your child, don't stand on the kitchen counter, right? Say, please keep your feet on the floor. Because if you tell them don't stand on the kitchen counter, well, now they're just going to stand on the kitchen table instead. Right? Versus if I'm telling you to stand on the floor, your feet are going to stay on the floor, right? And so you don't want to teach your child to don't exclude anybody. You want to teach them include everyone. So when you're finished with chalk, when you've had your fill of chalk and you want to switch to soccer, invite her. Hey, I'm going to go play soccer. Want to come with?
Right.
And so she then gets to make her own decision for herself. Am I into soccer, or do I really prefer to stay here and play chalk? Or maybe I want to play chalk, but I also want to play with you. And so, yeah, I'll join you for soccer for a little bit, right? Because that's something we do for the people we love too, right? Think about your spouse or your partner, right? We do shit that they like that we don't. And we really only do it because we care about them. Right.
That's facts.
Yeah. So, And so teaching our kids what we want them to do. How did you include people today? How did you include someone on the playground? Right? So it's okay. It's okay that you've had your fill of chalk and you want to move on. That's totally fine.
Yeah,
Tell the little girl, hey, I'm going to go play soccer now. Want to come with me?
give her the chance to decide. Let it be her decision.
Exactly. Yeah. Let it be her decision. Because then your child is there. He's not excluding anyone. He's actually being inclusive. This is the thing I'm going to go do next. Would you like to join me?
Yeah, that's excellent. I love that. Thanks for clarifying that. I was really thinking about that lately.
Yeah. And it's, when we tell our kids to stop a certain behavior, they're brand new to the world. They've only, my kids are only 10 and 8 years into it. So,
yeah.
So, when we tell them to stop something, well, what are they supposed to do instead? Right? I can't visualize stop excluding. What does stop excluding look like? I can't visualize that, but I can visualize include this person in your play. All right, cool. You're going to be this role. You're going to do this thing in the game. So just really, really teaching your children what should they be doing? What should they be doing?
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. Reminding ourselves that they are at an entirely different place in their mental development than we are as parents. So giving or guiding at least what is expected or what the options are is so important. So important. Would you say it's also a dirty little secret to feel like so here's just the example I'll give. My son is 8. I have yet to finish his baby book. And I feel like that's just, and first of all, whoever put it out there that you're even supposed to do a baby book, we're probably not friends. Because it's an expectation. It's an expectation that I clearly have not been able to live up to. But I feel like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't even put together this memorabilia of my child's like first year of life that, whether he wants it or not one day, I don't know. It's like, why do we even put this pressure on ourselves to keep up with these types of things? And I feel like in the context of talking to other parents about things like that, like I just, and not to like stereotype or other or group people, but like, okay, Pinterest type moms that can have all these like things, like I can't even be part of that conversation because I'm just so like, I'm failing at that constantly.
Well, and I would say that that's because you're setting an unrealistic expectation for yourself, right? If you're not a crafty person and you're setting the expectation that you have this spectacular baby book, well, you're destined for failure, my friend.
I think it's an example of a much bigger probably mentality of just things like that,
that there's these things you're supposed to do as a parent.
Yeah.
There are these things you're supposed to have. And I really struggle because some of them, sure, like I can get behind we're supposed to feed our kids and 3 square meals a day plus snacks. Whoever designed that one, oof, good gravy. But
that's a lot of expectation.
Right, exactly. And so, there are things obviously that we can get behind, but, some of those other things, those more crafty things, or, you're supposed to volunteer at school. And if you're not the room parent, shame on you. And what do you mean you didn't donate to the class party?
Oh my gosh, I feel all those things to like the center of my core of my being.
Yes. We are all good at different things.
Mm-hmm.
Find what you're good at and give that, right? So maybe your work schedule doesn't allow you to volunteer in the classroom, but it allows you to take your friend and his buddy to, a Chuck E. Cheese or I was going to name drop a few local places, but this podcast is not sponsored to the best of my knowledge. So, but you get my point, right? Like you have the ability to take them out to go do something fun. And maybe that kiddo's parent doesn't get to do those fun activities because they have a parent that stays home. And so the budget is tighter. They wouldn't really be able to get to go do something fun like that. Like, that's what makes the world go round. That's what makes a complete village, is that what you're good at, you excel in that area. And then stop trying to be good at everything. Let the other people who are good at the Pinteresty stuff be good at the Pinteresty stuff. Let them shine.
Yeah.
If
What comes to mind when you're talking about the idea of just doing what you're good at is the way a lot of homeschooling co-ops work, where like one parent will be like teaching the knitting lesson, another parent will be teaching, I don't know what it would even be, the baking English or music or whatever it is. And that too comes with a lot of like the dirty little secret type things when you're talking about the difference between homeschooling versus public or institutionalized school even, and just the different mentalities regarding that. That's a whole nother podcast, I would imagine. That's a rabbit hole. But that just brings that to mind though, is, friends of mine that homeschool and they have what are called their co-ops, where that's how they get all those extra things and the different experiences that maybe they themselves can't provide, or, they have no desire to provide. Like, I'm not going to try to be a musician when this other parent is actually one and can influence my kid better. Right.
Exactly. And we almost sell our kids short by trying to be everything, because we can't be everything. And so some things start to struggle, and if we can fill in, someone else to do certain pieces, like high quality, then we want that for our kids. We want high quality for our kids. I don't know a parent out there who doesn't want what's best for their kiddo.
Yeah,
and so,
for sure.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of different ways we could have gone with this dirty little parenting type conversation today. Dirty little secrets, not dirty little parents. Oh, well, I guess it's been a long day.
Well,
but
I was just gonna say, I'm a dirty parent on Saturday. There are days where we don't even get out our jammies on Saturdays.
Oh my gosh. There's a lot of directions this conversation could have went. But tell us, all of us today, what is something that you want to make sure that we're thinking about or that we're left with today in regards to this particular topic? What comes to mind?
Oh, yeah. So every parent has those dirty little secrets, the things that they don't want to cop to for fear of judgment. And I think the takeaway that I would love for parents to have after listening to this is that everyone's got them. And you'll know someone is part of your village if they're willing to exchange dirty secrets with you. I think of my other, my mom best friends, and, the text messages that we send each other throughout the day of, oh my gosh, if this child does X one more time. And it's always met with, oh gosh, I feel ya. So-and-so is doing X today.
Oh my gosh.
So finding your village so that you can air your dirty secrets with one another, because it's good. It's so good to be able to swap those secrets.
It is so necessary to know that you're not alone in all of this.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes.
Angie, as always, I have loved our time today. And it always seems like such a blink of an eye every time you and I talk. But here we are, over an hour already into our discussion, and I just don't even know where it went.
Really, truly. Well, hopefully people find it helpful. And, if anyone wants to hear anything specific, they should reach out to you. So that,
yeah, definitely, listeners, if there's some parenting, child developments, youth health topic that we want to discuss, certainly reach out. All the ways to stay connected to both myself and Angie are in the show notes. So either reach out to her or I, and we can certainly have a discussion to address the things that you're wondering about, and that will help you and your kids, just human better together.
I love that. Maybe that should be my new marketing slogan.
Human better together.
Where we help you human together better.
Angie, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate our time together.
I love it. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
These conversations I have with Angie are some of my favorite by far on this platform. She never fails to just enlighten us with so many gems and jewels in this crazy journey called parenthood. One of my favorite takeaways from this conversation was that healthy families feel and show the emotions on all spectrums. I think it's important to not make what you feel seem like a dirty secret to ourselves or to anybody else. And my second favorite, check your ego. You aren't causing your child's mental health issue, but you are a huge component in how they receive care and achieve recovery. Please go follow Angie on all the platforms she graces. All the ways to connect, as always, are in today's show notes. And as we mentioned, reach out if there is a topic you want us to discuss. We love connecting with each other and then sharing the conversations with you. Links to the podcast feedback form and all ways to connect with me are also in the notes. Check out ways to support this platform. Share, rate, and review. Because those few minutes you take to do so truly do matter in keeping this space open and available. Go human with your kids with all of today's gems fresh in mind. I'll see you guys soon.